Some baseball talk, Jeff. I've been wanting to talk about who's down on the farm, and you kept saying, well, let's wait to see who's left on the farm till after the trade deadline. Well, the
How
trade
you know?
deadline's passed. Let's bring back to the show Tom Housenick of the Morning Call. Mr. Housenick, you've seen some crazy baseball this week. How you doing?
It's been a blast, and I'm still awake, so we're good.
At some point, I'm gonna have to ask you about the baseball you saw this week because you were telling us about it a little bit before. But I just want to ask: after the trade deadline, you're somebody who's covered the minor leagues for years. Is there a sense of relief with these guys and in these organizations that they can just move forward and play ball now that it's done?
I think it's almost unspoken. They don't want to speak about it in July because that means they're thinking about it, not preparing for a game. And then you get to August, and it's like, well, they can't admit that they were thinking about it in July now that they're relieved that they're still here in August. So you can kind of see it just on their faces. We talked to Justin Crawford last night at midnight, and he seemed pretty relaxed. Now he's a pretty relaxed guy to begin with, but you didn't always see the same guy in July, even though he performed no different. I mean, he really hasn't had a slump here in AAA, but he seemed pretty chill last night, even after a doubleheader that took 6 hours, and it was well after midnight by the time everybody got out of here. But I think you could see it on the players' faces, but it's unspoken. There's even the managers like I don't even acknowledge that I even talked to them about it at any point. So I'm certainly not going to acknowledge in August that they're happy to still be here.
And that's where I want to start because that's the one of the two players who's down in Lehigh Valley or up in Lehigh Valley, who people are talking about now that the deadline has passed. Obviously, it's Crawford and it's Painter. And with regard to Crawford, I'll just tell you my concern. You get to watch him every day. Is he's still not hitting the ball? He's not elevating the ball. And while he's hitting for average, scouting in the major leagues is much better than scouting in the minor leagues. And positioning is going to be a lot harder. And so if you don't hit the ball in the air in the minors, the likelihood and of the ball getting through as much on the ground is going to be minimized if he goes to the majors. So he's not going to be able to hit for average if he doesn't start elevating the ball.
Do you want me to agree or disagree?
You get to do whatever you want. Most
I
people
would
just
love for you
disagree
to
with
do,
me.
I would love for you
But
to disagree.
that's my skepticism.
Every time I ask Jeff about Crawford, that's his response. He's still not elevating the ball. So if you want to disagree, go ahead, give me some ammo. I may clip it and send it in text messages to him offline.
he he has admitted that he is, now the third or fourth time through against many of these teams that they play 1,000 times, they have made adjustments on how they're pitching them. To his credit, he's adjusting to the adjustments, but his one problem remains that when he gets a pitch that is a mistake pitch, it's middle in to a left-hander, even a little down where we like it down there. Um, he's still lunging at the ball, and in his attempt to hit a rocket somewhere in the air off a wall, over the wall maybe once, he still struggles with that. His eyes, get wide. We've seen it with other guys over the years, but they're home run hitters. They're going to take their hacks. He looks uncomfortable swinging at pitches that are ones that he probably should level up. He had a couple of those swings last night, and he kind of jokes about it a couple of times because he almost falls over. He swings so hard. Um, but he's seen veteran pitchers, guys who have major league experience, know how to pitch to guys like this. And I can't think of a third baseman in this league that has not stayed home knowing that he is going to hit the ball to left field more often than not. The shortstop staying home or even shading him more toward the hole because that's where he tends to hit the ball. So he's seen the adjustments and he's still getting his hits. I used to get so annoyed going back, showing my age, the Marlins back in the day when they won a World Series with Juan Pierre and some of those little rats they had at the top of the lineup who just slapped the ball all over the place and ran and just created chaos. And I think he's the modern day version of that. He's obviously very fast. He's not the fastest guy. I think Rojas would probably beat him in a race, but he's pretty darn fast and he just makes contact. And I just think the reason he has not slumped and is still hitting 325 or three, whatever it is because he puts the ball in play and makes two players make a play in order to get him out. Now, again, major leaguers are going to make those plays more often than minor leaguers, but he just takes his chances with his speed and his hand-eye coordination. I just think that's a great combination to have. I wouldn't want to change anything about that part of his game. There are other parts I think need to improve, and I think he'd be the first to admit it, but that's not one of them for me.
So would you bring him up?
No, no, not a chance. I never thought for 1 second through this entire season that he and Andrew Painter were ready to go up. I think it's important for them to be left alone to be able to develop. I think Crawford still, we talk defensively, we talk base running, we talk at the plate. There are still a lot of room for him to be more polished, to be more like his dad, if you want to dare make the comparison. His routes to balls in the outfield are not great. He always seems to catch the ball, but it's not the prettiest. And again, Major League Parks can be a little more challenging, a little less familiar. He's going to need to be better with that. Somebody like Cal Stevenson, who again is a filler player who's had his time the last couple of years. It looks effortless when he runs routes to get the ball. The ball seems to fall into his glove, whereas Justin has to work hard to get that ball to go in his glove sometimes. And I think that's something that he's working on, and it still remains a work in progress. And for that aspect, as well as a few others, I think he should be kept here for the entire season. So that's just my 2 cents about that.
You mentioned the other name, Andrew Painter. Obviously, lots of different interest in him for lots of different reasons, whether it's the Phillies starting pitching currently or you're looking to the future of the organization and the hype around him. But he has had his struggles. The other night, 4 runs, 3 hits, 2 walks, 1K. I mean, his first inning was kind of a mess. He seemed up in the zone everywhere and just had very difficult time with control. What are you seeing with him? You've already said you wouldn't bring him up. You don't think they will?
I find it really hard to believe. I mean, barring, you know, Nola having a setback, Taiwan Walker getting hurt, something. I mean, it would take a lot in my eyes. And now again, there's one less option with McAble not here. But I just find it hard to believe that they're going to mess with what he's working toward. I mean, he's just zoomed through the minors up to Reading until the injury, and to be away from pitching in this kind of environment for 2+ years, he's the first to admit, like, rust isn't the word he uses, but he's just not as polished and he's not as consistent with things that he has come to expect of himself. And he has this 1 inning seemingly in almost every start where it's a crooked number. But my argument for progress with him is that he finds a way to eventually get out of that inning. The manager doesn't have to come get him. If you look back to last year and watch poor McAble trying to get through things, he could never get out of that inning. Whether it was the first inning or the fourth inning, the manager has to come get him and get a reliever in there because he can't find a way once things kind of go off the rails. Painter every time has found a way to at least get out of the inning somehow and give his team a chance, and then throw another inning or two without any damage to keep his team in the game. And I think that alone shows maturity. He's also been the first to say, look, I'm not ready. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I should be in his eyes. Again, 98, whether it's 98, 100, or even if it's 103, if we're talking about a reliever the Phillies now have, if it's straight and down at the belt in the zone, it's going to get hit. And when Painter has made mistakes with his fastball in particular, it's gotten hit. He's had some classic at bats here in the last month against one of the Yankees' top prospects, Spencer Jones. His first at bat against him in a game here last month, Painter said, I threw him 4 really good pitches. Not the same pitch 4 times and not the same location, but I threw him 4 good pitches. He fouled 3 off and hit the next one off the wall. And I still don't know how he did it. He's going to see a lot more of that, obviously, in the major leagues with a lot better hitters. He just realizes that he has to be consistent in finding quadrants other than the middle of the zone, no matter how good his stuff is. And he's also seen teams that have kind of ambushed him, knowing that when he's wild in the strike zone. He's throwing bad strikes. So they're coming up there ready to hit. They're swinging at the first pitch. If it's a really good pitch, they're going after it. They're not waiting for him to get him in a 1-2-0-2 hole and then trying to figure out what to do. So he's kind of had to adjust to how players are approaching him and attacking him. Better hitters than he's ever seen before. And I think he's making progress. But again, not ready for the major leagues.
So for those people that are sitting there saying, well, you know what, why not just bring him up and have him as a reliever in the bullpen because he throws 100? The answer is no, right?
No, I think, and we don't, we go back to 23 spring training when There was the talk of maybe him starting with the Phillies, and then of course he throws it 1,000 miles an hour in the first start, and he's hurt. You don't want to put him in that kind of situation. Whether you're bringing him into the fifth inning of a 7-0 game, that doesn't really mean that he still knows he's in the major league ballpark in front of a lot of fans who have been waiting to see him and an organization that's been waiting for him to blossom. That's just to let him kind of warm up to that. And I think this year has just been all about growing pains and getting back to a routine that had come so easy to him up until the time of the injury. And start off next spring and just say, hey, look, we'll see, and let it go from there. But I think this year, just let him be.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you about the one guy that nobody actually thinks I'm going to ask you about, which is the catcher, Garrett Stubbs. He's done a great job, as far as I can see, going to AAA and helping these young pitchers. Is it now time? Marshawn has not been particularly successful. I don't think he's adding that much as the backup catcher. Do you want to bring Stubbs up for a playoff push to have that veteran guy as the backup to JT?
That was not the question I thought you would ask.
He is the one guy that how do I say this? I just don't understand why he's here. I would much rather have him in the major leagues than Marshawn, and it's nothing personal to Marshawn. I just think there's so much that Stubbs brings as a guy who can catch once or twice a week and still be semi-productive. He's been phenomenal in the clubhouse here. Forget about how he's helped McAble and how he's helped Andrew Painter and some of these other guys, but just other young guys who maybe don't have to interact with a catcher. Gabe Rinconis, some others. He's just been right for everybody, and that's great here. But I think you're right. As we get to August, September playoffs, I'd rather have him on my roster than Marshawn at this point. And again, Marshawn, when he's here, he's hardly been healthy, so you don't get extended looks at him, and certainly he's not getting that behind JT. And Stubbs had to kind of adjust when he was playing 3 days a week here, which is something he's never done the last 4 or 5 years in the majors. So I think he hit a point where his body was getting worn out a little bit. And again, he's built like I am. He's not a big guy trying to catch in the heat of the summer and doing something he hadn't done in 4 or 5 years. I think he his back got a little slow. He got probably a little fatigued, but he seemed to pick it up now. And again, he's healthy, and he's proven he can help at that level in that kind of situation. I would definitely take him up.
You see a couple guys down there kind of rehabbing, trying to get themselves back up to the top. First, I want to ask about Aaron Nola. You mentioned him earlier. First 2 rehab starts, total 6 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 1.35 ERA. He says he feels good, normal soreness after his last start. What have you seen from him? Because it was a struggle before he even got hurt this season.
I think last night was a big step because it looked, and he had a little bit of first inning uncomfortability, a couple of walks, a bloop hit, another single from Spencer Jones, and you thought, oh boy, this is a lot of what we had seen in Philadelphia. But his mechanics were perfectly fine. Everything seemed smooth. They laid off some quality pitches. He threw a couple knuckle curves with 2 strikes that a couple of the Yankees prospects just stayed off. And again, that's going to happen. Sometimes the hitter is going to be better. But after he got that first inning, everything else just seemed kind of effortless. He got 8 of the last 10 out. I think there was 1 hard hit ball the last 3 innings he pitched. He seemed like the Noel that we're kind of hoping comes back whenever he gets activated. So I think his velocity was a little better than it was in the first rehab start. Not a huge jump, but he just looked like he was in mid-season form in terms of his mechanics and location on most of his pitches for most of the night.
All right. So now I'm going to ask you about the other team for a second. Spencer Jones, the guy you just mentioned. The Yankees are struggling left and right. Explain to me why Spencer Jones is not up. Last I checked, I think he has 13 home runs at AAA in 28 games. Before that, in AA, he had 16 home runs in 49 games. So the guy's got 29 home runs in about 75, 77 games. What are they waiting for?
His defense is too good to be with the big team. Have you seen what they're doing on that baseball field?
It makes no sense to me.
It's interesting. He had 2 or 3 really good at bats against somebody like Andrew Painter, and then last night they bring in a position player who's throwing, 50, and he was the one guy they got out. Now it was a 400-foot shot to the wall, but he had some uncomfortable swings. We've seen him. He's kind of like Crawford when he gets that hit me pitch, gets excited. It's like, man, this is right there, and just swings so hard. But I've seen him make a lot of contact, so I don't see that. When I saw him a couple times in Double A, you could tell there were holes in his swing. His timing was terrible. He was off balance. He didn't look good. But everything I've seen from the 2 series here recently, he looks as ready as somebody should be in AAA before that call up. So they can't do any worse than what they're doing up there in the majors now. Again, as a guy who's watched the Yankees for a long time, I'm surprised at their patience.
It's all about the beards. They allowed the beards and they went downhill.
Apparently, and that was not a thing that I was okay with. I like rules and I like a little history, so I don't think that was something that I wanted to see. Now I'm sure it'll expand to the Marshes of the world and Stroms of the world. That's just makes me cringe.
You won't like it. You won't like it when somebody's got Marsh's beard on the Yankees.
No.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Phillies for a second, or more than a second, as much time as you got. The Phillies now have a closer, and not only are you seeing the benefit of having a closer in a short period of time, but you're seeing what it does for the other guys. And we've talked to you before about the importance of bullpen roles. Does the mere having a closer and putting the other guys in slots that they feel comfortable with, does that change the entire bullpen possibly for a World Series run?
I don't see how it doesn't, because first of all, you look at your starting pitching and you know that we're not looking just to get through 4 or 5 innings in a playoff game. You can go pretty deep with a lot of these 3 of these starters that you're going to have, and then you only have to worry about 3 innings. And when you have a guy like that sitting there waiting for the 9th inning, well, then you really only have to worry about 2 innings, and you have guys who are much more comfortable, seemingly, in 7th and 8th inning roles. You're set. The Yankees, when they actually won World Series, you had to just get through 5 innings, and then they just said, "Okay, we're good from here. You gave us the lead. The game's over." And it wasn't just because Mariano Rivera was sitting in the back end waiting. They had guys leading up to that, all through that stretch run of the mid '90s on through. So there's a formula that works, and I think when you say, "Okay, Jeff, you're going to be my 8th inning guy," and there's just a comfort level there, even though you're pitching in front of 45,000 people in a playoff game, just to know that that's my time and I'm working toward that to get ready. It has to do wonders, and to know, and then to see a guy come in and throw 103, 104 miles an hour, that just got to amp up everybody else in the bullpen, and just kind of, again, just sets the tone for seemingly a dominant finish to the game for the pitching staff.
Another arm that you've been able to see that they're hoping to add to that bullpen is David Robertson. He's had some ups and downs as he tries to work himself back into shape. On Wednesday, though, he threw 1 inning, giving up 1 hit, no runs, struck out 2. His fastball topped off at 94, sat at 92. What are you seeing about him? Do you think he'll be added?
I think if we see more of what we saw last night, his pitches, there was more life to his pitches. The velocity was up a tick. His off-speed pitch was just outstanding. It was what we've seen previously in his other stints here, and even last year with Texas. I think he's getting closer. I had my doubts. The first couple outings, what I had seen was not, looked like a guy maybe hanging on a little bit too long. But last night, the stuff was sharp. There was bite to his off speed. His fastball had life, even if it's only 94. It was just in the right locations. And again, if we see that 1 or 2 more times, that's fine. I'd find it hard to believe that he's not in Philadelphia real soon.
Oh, I didn't ask you real fast before we close. The Aiden Miller struggled some, but he's stolen 40 bases already. And I mean, they haven't had that Reading in a while. He still has like 30 games left, and the record is 50 or something like that. And I don't know, minor league baseball or Reading. Talk about what you're seeing from his development and also his struggles.
Well, I think he's another one who kind of understands that he was going to struggle this year, stepping up to that level, knowing he was going to see some better pitching. And he struggled for most of the year offensively. He's just now up into the 230s, but he's found a way much like, and they're completely different hitters and completely different prospects, but Gabe Rincon is here. For the longest time, he's sitting at 205 to 215. But you look at his on base percentage and it's in the 350s or 360s. He still found a way to get on base and be productive. Miller, he gets on base, that's second or third base. So that's been a big deal for him, which he still found a way to get on base. And I think, again, his defense, again, much like Crawford, it's not as polished as we want it to be or think it should be for the level of prospect that he is and the level he's at. But I think, again, it's been a step forward. I'm glad that they're not even talking about bringing him to AAA for any reason. Just let him continue to develop in AA. He seems like, again, like a patient kid who understands that things are not going to come overnight, and he's taken to the coaching. Obviously, he's learning how to steal bases. That's, again, one thing Crawford's been able to do a little bit here too, is once you get on first base, is continue to keep the pressure on the defense and the catcher. And I think it's still been a positive year for Miller. I think there were some pretty lofty expectations for him regarding, batting average, on base percentage. Maybe he hasn't met that, but I think he's shown progress. And the fact that we're talking about him on the rise here in August, rather than maybe getting tired and fatigued and mentally struggling, it's a good sign that he's not hit that wall. And again, I think it's been a good year for him.
Last from me, who's the catching prospect, or who's going to be the guy once JT is either no longer here or hangs it up? Now that Tate has been traded, it was a great move. Look, as far as I'm concerned, what Dombrowski did getting Duran was a great move. But is there anybody left as a catching prospect?
No, not that I've seen in any of the top three levels. That's a big question. Again, JT's much closer to the end than we realize in terms of being a guy who can catch 130 days or 120 games a year. Again, now where does he go with Schwarber and Harper limited? I mean, that's a question for another day, but the time is coming soon where he's not going to be able to catch this kind of bulk and be productive both defensively and offensively. I don't know where that guy comes from. I would hope that maybe they make a trade or somehow they have an international signing that just somehow wows them, like the 18-year-old they just traded, which, again, I agree with the trade and who they included. I didn't want Crawford and Painter in any conversation for anybody. So the two guys they had to deal were the two they dealt in. Again, that does create a huge void. I don't know where that next catcher is. He's not here, and he's not in Reading as far as I can see.
Well, we'll keep watching. We'll keep watching you. We always appreciate you giving us some time to break it all down and let us know what's coming next for the future Phillies. Tom Housenick,
My pleasure,
thanks so much
guys.
for the time, man.
Always a pleasure. Glad to talk to you guys. Stop arguing.
Never. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks.